Hi, thank you for tuning in to the latest Hurricane Tracker app video update recorded August 23rd at around 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Well, we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to try to get through it as fast as we can here. Starting out with Tropical Storm Danny. As of the 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time advisory released a few minutes ago from the National Hurricane Center, Danny is moving towards the west at 15 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds are at 50 miles per hour. And the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center calls for Danny to weaken further into about a 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm overnight, and then through Monday morning as it moves through the northern portions of the Lesser Antilles, where we do have tropical storm warnings and watches in effect. We also have tropical storm watches in effect for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. But as we get into early this week, the National Hurricane Center is forecasting Danny to weaken into a tropical depression and then eventually a remnant low as it interacts with the mountains of Hispaniola. At this point in time, we see really no reason to disagree with this. There is still an outside chance, about 10 to 20% chance that Danny could do something a little different than this, and we'll look at that in just a moment here. Here's the latest 5-day alert levels issued from the issued from the Hurricane Tracker app. We like to put these out so that our users can see what their alert levels should be. Obviously, if you're a user, from the Bahamas, Cuba, Hispaniola, alert levels are not too high at the moment. We even have low alert levels all the way out to Western Cuba and South Florida, just as there is still an outside remote possibility that this system could end up moving into this part of the basin. But right now, not much worry here in this area. Just keep in mind that Danny is out there. It has been kind of unpredictable at this point. These small storms do have a mind of their own, as we've talked about. But really, the biggest impacts and highest alert levels are here really from Puerto Rico eastward through the Virgin Islands and the northern Lesser Antilles, again, where impacts are imminent overnight tonight. Looking at the latest still image of the visible satellite imagery, over the last 12 hours, Danny has become a little further disorganized. The center of circulation has become exposed, and most of the heavy thunderstorms and convection are being pushed off towards the north and east by a strong upper level wind shear. You can see the clouds here on the bottom left of your screen blowing from the southwest to the northeast. Those are winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere, which are helping to blow the thunderstorms away from the center of circulation. And if you see these clouds up here at the low levels moving from east to west, those are the lower level trade winds, and then here are the upper level winds. The atmosphere is 3D. It has many different levels, and weak tropical storms have a hard time usually fighting this off. So the National Hurricane Center is going with the favorable odds that the wind shear is going to ultimately cause Danny to dissipate fully into an open wave. I wanted to take a little closer look here at the wind shear that is near Tropical Storm Danny. Give me just a moment to pull the shear level, overlay the shear map here. Here we go. Sorry about that. So you can see the wind bars. We have the strong southwest wind shear aloft, and we have wind shear running in the 20 to 30 knot range. Now, once Danny moves out of this stronger area of wind shear south of Puerto Rico here along the forecast track, wind shear does decrease in the upper levels to about 10 knots. There is a different image, which I'm not showing, which is showing the potential of some mid-level wind shear of about 15 to 20 knots in the forecast at a different layer in the atmosphere. So again, conditions may improve a little bit, but it may not be enough for Danny to keep its tropical storm status here as it moves closer to Puerto Rico. But there is still a chance that this system may continue to fight the wind shear and hold its own. Looking at the latest intensity models over the next couple of days, they do forecast Danny to weaken further, but what's really catching our eye is the early afternoon models are now showing an uptick in intensity. Some models bringing Danny up to Category 2, 3 status 5 or 6 days from now. So we're going to keep an eye on these trends to see if this is, if future model runs are going to show this, or if this was just a one-time run showing this uptick in intensity. Right now, the most likely scenario is for Danny to weaken and continue to move towards the west and fizzle out into a remnant low. If Danny is somehow able to find a better environment, as we showed south of Puerto Rico, and strengthen into a stronger tropical storm, it may want to move more poleward over Puerto Rico, as some of these models are indicating, through the southeast Bahamas before turning north east of the United States. But again, that's all dependent upon the intensity of the storm. It would have to really strengthen in order to move up through the southeast Bahamas and east of the United States. One of those models is the GFDL model. It's been very consistent for the last 5 to 10 runs, showing Danny moving on a west-northwesterly course and strengthening here in the Bahamas back into a major hurricane. I'd give this solution about a 5% chance of happening. The more reliable models, the European model, the GFS America model, and the HWRF model, which has performed very well in recent days with Danny, are all showing Danny weakening and dissipating here south of Puerto Rico and into Hispaniola. Some of you have asked, what are the chances that Danny gets to the Gulf of Mexico? And if it gets there, what do the conditions look like? Well, the chances of Danny making it past the mountains of Hispaniola and into the Gulf are very low. I'd say 3 to 5% chance that Danny can make it into the Gulf at this point. And if it were to make it into the Gulf, by Wednesday, Thursday of next week, the GFS model as well as the European model agree on a deep trough of low pressure, actually very deep for this time of year here for late summer, extending all the way down into the northern Gulf Coast. Upper level wind shear, as depicted by the colors here on this map, would be very strong in the 50, 60, 70 knot range out of the southwest. So there's very little chance first that Danny would make it to the Gulf, and if it did, the threat to the Gulf Coast would be very low. But again, if Danny is able to intensify in the short term, looks like these winds would help pick it up and turn it off towards the northeast away from Florida. But nevertheless, that is a long-range forecast. We still have less than 10% chances that Danny would eventually track here into the northwestern Bahamas near Florida. The chances of Danny reaching the western Gulf Coast are less than 1%, and then around 2% here along the Florida Panhandle. But really, if you're a resident or have an interest anywhere from North Carolina down through Florida, up and through the Bahamas, still keep a close eye on Danny, as there's still an outside chance that the storm could strengthen if it finds favorable conditions and move off towards the west-northwest. But again, that's not likely at this point. For you folks in Puerto Rico, you're under a tropical storm watch. We do have some scattered showers this afternoon. Expect through the day tomorrow rain bands to increase from the east. And official forecast from the National Hurricane Center is for 2 to 4 inches of rainfall from Danny as it moves south of Puerto Rico over the next couple of days. It does appear that next week across the Atlantic Basin can continue to be busy. We have Invest 98L that was designated last night. It has a 70% chance of developing over the next 5 days anywhere in this red shaded region. Behind that, we have another wave coming off the coast of Africa, and that also has a chance of developing, although it is lower. This is a brand new tropical weather outlook issued at 2 p.m. from the National Hurricane Center. And they've actually increased development chances for Invest 98L to 70% chance within a couple of days, and 80% chance of development within the next 5 days, and a 20% chance of development through the next 5 days for the new wave coming off the coast of Africa. So for Invest 98L, they are advising that environmental conditions are conducive for additional development, and a tropical depression is likely to form by middle portions of this week. And if it does intensify into a tropical storm, the next name on the list would be Erica. Here's a look at the latest visible satellite imagery of Invest 98L, if it'll load up here. Let's go look at the visible still image. You can see the storm is becoming a little bit better organized. Sorry, not the storm, but the Invest. The issue with this system right now, it's moving so fast at about 20 miles per hour. It's going to take a little longer for this to consolidate and develop, but it looks like it's definitely on the right track. And speaking of track, it does look like future tropical storm Erica, and again, most models are indicating that's likely to happen this week, are likely to take a similar path to Danny and track just near or north of the northern portions of the Lesser Antilles, and then possibly turning east of the Bahamas. And somewhere by later portions of the next week, it could be located between the southeast United States coast and Bermuda. The European model, 8 to 10 days from now, is showing this invest could strengthen into another major hurricane, which would be the second of the season. I believe only one was forecasted. But what's really concerning about this long-range forecast, and of course we all know these can change, I'm not really looking at specifics here, I'm looking at the trends. So I'm starting with this as a baseline, and then over future model runs, see how it changes and what the trends are. But right now the European ensembles are a little bit concerning. They're developing a strong ridge of high pressure here across Nova Scotia and the northeastern portions of the United States. And as you know, winds around an area of high pressure flow clockwise. And if this forecast were to verify, it could actually push this closer towards the mid-Atlantic or northeast United States coast. So this is something we're going to be watching very closely to see how these trends play out. But Invest 98L at this point is looking like it could be a bigger threat to the United States than Danny ever was. So that's, again, something we're going to be keeping a close eye on. Sorry this video update was a little long. There's lots to talk about. We'll be doing these video updates and continuing our blogs and audio updates throughout the coming week as we start really focusing in on Invest 98L. Thank you so much for watching the latest Hurricane Tracker video update, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thanks so much for watching.